Hey everybody, Josh Nordine with another exciting Accord form video. This is the Accord 141 crime section. Now if you're looking at this form and you have one in front of you that looks a little bit different, do not be alarmed. They all have the same information. It's just over the years ISO has changed, or Accord has changed these forms from time to time, and they have the same information. They just might be in a little bit of a different format. I'm using the 2011 version. You might have one that's either a little bit newer, a little bit older, but regardless, it's the same information. And crime is something that was kind of confusing to me when I first got into commercial insurance. I want to demystify crime insurance today, as well as go through the coverages and how to fill this out. So first off, crime insurance and is really predominantly centered around employee-related losses like theft, forgery, that sort of thing. Basically embezzlement when employees take things. But it can also include robbery and burglary inside the premises. So a lot of times when you get a business owner's policy, these sort of things can automatically be included, which is why a lot of times you will never have to fill out a crime section in Accord 141. Lucky for you. But every once in a while you run into an entity that's large enough that they need more coverage than what the business owner's policy or commercial package is going to offer. In that case, you will need to fill out the Accord 141 in addition to the 125, which is the general form, and all of the other, liability and property forms included. So very briefly, before we get into the form itself, crime insurance in the crime section is going to cover things like employee theft, theft of securities and money inside the premises, safe burglary, robbery inside the premises, funds transfer fraud, computer fraud, counterfeit checks, counterfeit money, and loss from any like alteration or forgery. Wow, that's hard to say. It's important to note, a lot of times there's a couple things. People think that crime insurance coverage is going to cover things like, data breach, but that's different than computer fraud. Computer fraud is like, in some cases, you can get an endorsement on the crime section for social engineering. That deal where a person gets an email asking to transfer money. They think it's from another employee in the office, and they transfer money to an account that turns out to be offshore somewhere to a bad guy. That's a specific example of computer fraud that you may want to check with the carrier you're writing this with to make sure that that's included or doesn't need to be specifically endorsed. Things that the crime section does not cover, it does not cover data breach, which is, person hacking in or somehow them getting access to the client's datas from outside a non-employee. So the reason why crime insurance is here in the first place is because in the property section, which has to do with losses, it specifically excludes you from causing a loss to yourself. And when you're a business, yourself is also your employees. So your employees causing damage to the business is you causing damage to yourself. And that's where crime comes in, basically centering primarily around employee losses to the business. So let's go ahead and get started. As we go through this, there's going to be more things that we think of, and we'll address those as we go. So let's go ahead and start with today's date and your agency. We're going to skip the carrier and the policy number. We're going to go ahead and do the date here that we want the effective date of the policy. Ideally, you want to go 2 months out or 3 months out, but just depending on the size of the account. You always want to do the named insured as the entity. All right. We're going to use a jewelry store as an example here because when you come down to the bottom part later, I just think it's a good example, and I've had a lot of experience with jewelry stores. Okay, basis for coverage, discovery versus loss sustained. Very simple check boxes, very big ramifications in terms of coverage. Discovery is more broad than loss sustained. My opinion is you always want to use discovery if possible. Might cost a little bit extra, but discovery means that whenever they discover the loss, this policy is going to pay for the loss if it's covered. Loss sustained means that they have to have the policy in effect when the loss occurred. So if there was an instance of employees or embezzlement over a long period of time, it's really only going to cover during that time that the policy was in effect. So discovery is a lot more coverage because it can go back farther when the loss was discovered. Whatever policy was in effect when the loss was discovered, in fact, this one would then cover the loss. So I err on the side of discovery when possible. Now when we get down here, you'll notice that there's a lot of blanket or schedule. If possible, blanket is the most broad and easiest, okay? When we get way down, I'm going to scroll down here. When we get down into page what is this, page 4? By the way, this won't go as slowly as we think. There's some skipping sections here. But when we get down to 4, it's the employee's schedule. This is where you list the location, the employee title, limit, and deductible. If you were to schedule coverage, if you were to choose schedule, that basically means that you're going to have coverage based by individual or by location. So if you blanket it, it's typically more common, and it's just a limit for all employees in all locations and all positions. So if we do a limit of, let's just say, $1 million, you may want to do much more than this. It really depends on the business. Some businesses have a lot of assets that could be stolen or embezzled. Let me give you some quick stats real quick here. This was from the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. Sounds like an exciting job, like insurance. Typically, organizations lose 5% of their revenues to fraud each year. Another statistic is the average loss caused by an employee dishonesty is $140,000, with 1 in every 5 cases reporting of loss of at least $1 million. So 1 out of 5 losses end up being $1 million or more dollars. So $1 million, you might do a lot more than that, but $1 million is the least I would do. Deductible, we're just going to throw in something like, we'll just throw in $5,000. Again, this varies by carrier, and I encourage you to talk to your underwriter. Pick up the phone. Your primary underwriter that you're going to be working with, it's a good idea to maybe call and find out what they do with their company, because they're going to have certain coverages and deductibles that you can work with them to make sure you're getting the best premium for your dollar. Very important. That's very important, by the way. Otherwise, it's amazing. You can put a $5,000 deductible and not realize that you can save 25% off the premium by going to a $10,000 deductible, in which case you would definitely want to do for that kind of savings. Okay, inside the premises, so robbery or burglary, of course being forced entry into something like a safe to get money, robbery being something where you're of course putting a employee at gunpoint to open the safe, and we're just of course going to blanket this to whatever the maximum dollar amount is on the premises. Okay, throw another deductible on there. Okay, on your BOP or your commercial package policy, again, the reason why a lot of people don't fill out the Accord 141 is because this sort of stuff is automatically covered. But when you're dealing with like a jewelry store or a bank or something with a lot of cash on hand, like a paycheck loan type place, that's where you're going to need the 141 to give you extra coverage that the normal bells and whistles included coverage don't include. Okay, so money and security outside the premises, let's just say $50,000 outside, and we'll do a deductible here again of $5,000. I'm just keeping the deductible the same. This varies widely by carrier. Okay, and then other properties, we'll just do another $100,000. Whoops. Okay, with the deductible of $5,000. And again, anytime I get the chance on any other properties, I want to say blanket whenever I can. Okay, ERISA. Oh boy, this is a whole conversation. So basically, ERISA is if the business has employees and they have any sort of a like a retirement plan, like a 401k or something like that. And what this is actually doing, this is why it always stumbled me a little bit. This is actually looking more for like a bond, okay? So bond's different than insurance, but in some cases, in order to comply with the ERISA Act, which has to do with a government act where a business needs to be covered in the event that they mess up the funds of their employees. You'd want to put down an aggregate limit here that is at least 10% of the plan amount, the total plan amount. So however much they have in terms of retirement funds and that they deal with for their employees, you'll want to put that as at least 10%. So in this case, I'm just going to say, let's say that they've got, like, I don't know, we'll just do like 300,000. Depends on the business. Again, 3% or 10% of the plan amount, and then the total asset value. In that case, we'd put like 3 million. Check my math there, but I think I'm right. Okay, per plan you would put in here. I'm just throwing numbers out here. Sorry, guys. This obviously can vary widely based off of the plans and the person, but these are like 3 extremely wealthy people with big plans. Okay, employee theft. Okay, so government is going to be an additional limit here. So government crime, you would include this if it was in a government entity. So we're going to leave that blank in this particular example, but you would need to include that if it was a government entity. Forgery or alteration, we're just going to throw a limit in here of like 25,000. Well, actually, that can actually rack up. I'm going to put 50,000. Amazing how people can sometimes slow play these like check frauds over time. And then theft of money and securities, we're going to blanket that inside. Let's say that they have this 500,000. I'm using big numbers here, but let's just say they've got $5,000 of money and securities, 500,000 on premises. All right. Computer fraud. We're going to put down, again, we'll just keep our 500. Funds transfer fraud. Again, here's where you want to make sure that your carrier doesn't have a sweet little exclusion where the if the principal or partner or owner acts in conjunction or approves the fund transfer, that it's not covered, because that of course kills that whole phishing attack that a lot of people are doing with social engineering I mentioned before. So make sure that either you can endorse that on where that would be covered, or make sure and explain that to the insured if that isn't covered in terms of funds transferring with a fake email. Money orders and counterfeit papers. Let's put on, let's say, 50,000. And I'm just keeping the deductible simple. Okay. If there's any specific endorsements or something, you can list that in the blank section here. And then, of course, any other coverage endorsements can also be added here if you want to. So you can add in coverage there, or if it's a specific endorsement, you can put there. All right. So ERISA employment theft. So this is again coming into the retirement funds. Let's just say it's 401k USA, and then you're just going to put the address of whatever the business is here. That's a fake address, by the way. Number of trustees, employees handling the plan assets. We're going to say it's those 3 super rich people. Number of plan participants. Well, let's just say that then there's like 30 people under them. Magic number today is 3. Explain all yes responses. Okay, so we do not have, by the way, whenever you see something that says explain all yes responses, you know that yes means subject to more underwriting questions. So our volunteers use no. Our employees lease to others, no. All right, I'm just going to fly through these unless there's any that jump out or any employees. Okay. All right, warehouse receipts. Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Transfer any funds via phone or fax. Going to want to have some safeguards on the phone machine or fax machine. All right. If those were yes, just explain in the notes here why. All right. So now we're getting down to this awesome section. Whoa. Okay, locations and employees. So let's just say that we've got a whole place full of cashiers and assistants. Now you would obviously go through here and like list out who and what and that sort of thing. We're going to say that there's 3 offices. We're going to say that there's 30 other employees, which is the cashiers. And let's see here. We're going to say that there's no like guards or anything. Okay, I think we're good there. All right, just checking to make sure I'm not skipping anything important. All right. Okay. Again, I'm only answering what we need to get a quote. That's the underlying theme of all of my videos here, because I'm just interested in getting a quote from carriers that we can then bind coverage on. Okay, so all of these, if possible, you want to answer yes. Obviously, if it's not yes, you'll need to answer no. However, you're not going to get the best rate if the answer is no. All right. Audit is performed by, let's just say, a CPA. And it is, whoa, caps lock is on. I'm also a CPA firm, and all right, whatever. Okie doke, cool, that's all there is to that. Date of last audit, let's just say it was 6 months or so ago. Oh man, inventories. Oh, every jewelry store loves inventories. And they're always free after, oh, not Valentine's Day. Oh, not during wedding season. They just got done. Cool. Audit frequency, we'll just say that is semi-annual, is rendered to the partners. Well, this was in a corporation, we'll say owner. A financial format is an audit. Okay. All right. All that hopefully makes sense. If it doesn't, shoot me a comment. I'm always answering comments. Are all locations audited? Well, of course they are. Why wouldn't they be? Yes, we're using General Accepted Accounting Standards, or GAAP. If someone just says GAAP standards, that's GAA. Wait a minute. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. I'm not an accountant. We're going to just, but this is typically always done with Generally Accepted Auditing Standards. Oh, I'm thinking accounting. Sorry about that, guys. But it usually is yes. Okay, let's see here. We're in discrepancies or loose practices. Hopefully that is a no. That's a big no, hopefully. Does the audit include the inventory? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, I'm going to put no, and it is because they do a separate inventory. Okay. Yes, we check references. Yes, we look for ghost employees, employees that are like still have logins and stuff like that, but that are no longer employed. Yes, we of course audit our payroll. Yes, we do a physical inventory, and we do that annually. All right. Ooh, I like this one. Yes, we make sure that we have people audit that don't have custody and control of stuff to steal things. It's a checks and balance thing. You don't want people that can write checks be able to cash checks, for example, in another example. Okay. Yes, we have order required. All right. Wait, our bank accounts reconciled with someone not authorized. I'm going to read this one carefully. Our bank accounts reconciled by someone not authorized. That should be a yes, people. That should be a yes. You don't want people to say that the bank account is correct if that person can also deposit or withdraw money. That's a checks and balance system. You want like another person that doesn't have power to be able to double check that stuff. That's awesome. Make sure you know that one. Counter signature of checks required. That should be a yes, and a lot of times that's an agency principle. And I'm just rocking the caps lock because time is money. Will securities be subject to joint control? Oh gosh. No. Okay. Actually, yes. Sorry, that should be a yes. All right. Oh, this is a great one. This is probably going to be no, but our officers are required to take annual vacations at least 5 consecutive business days. If you put yes, that will give you a better rate sometimes. Rarely eligibility, but that's because that way another person that's in the office can double check, to make sure that they don't have anything funny going on, because if they're gone longer than 5 days, stuff can get caught. There should be a written policy for EFTs. The largest single amount that can be transferred, let's say, is $100,000. Okay. All right, this should be yes. Yes. Frequency of deposits, we'll just say is daily. Our detailed records of yes. Detailed yes, okay. All right, man, we are flying. Money and securities, enter the exposures for each category. Okay, so, okay, there are, so inside are like the cashiers, the attendants, the retail people. That's how much money we have inside of the property. So let's say money, we have $500,000 of money inside of the building, okay? And we could have checks for deposit. We could say, well, technically up above I put 500,000 as the total. So I'm in this case, I'm gonna say like 300,000 of money, 100,000 of checks to deposit. Whoops. 100,000 of checks for accounts payable. Money overnight, I'm gonna just put, if I can put 0, I'm gonna put 0, but I might put 5,000. Gosh, I want to put 0 if I can. I hate to have, but I don't want to expose my insured, so at least gonna put some incidental, but that's a tough one. Some carriers are gonna require that to be 0, just so you know, or 10%. 10% is another percentage sometimes that they're going to require there. So you might want to check with your carrier that you're writing this with to see, again, this could be a big premium factor of what you want to put there. Payroll checks, I'm just going to put like, 6,000. I'm going to keep a bunch of payroll checks, hopefully. Okay, that might be 60 in some cases. Security, in-bank, safe deposits. Sorry, and I apologize. I'm going back and forth on here. I've got 2 jewelry stores in my mind that I keep bouncing back and forth on. One of them's a big one. One of them's a little one. So it really depends on the business. Okay. So security in the bank, in the safe deposit box. Let's just say 50,000. Okay. All right, purchasing and receiving controls. Are duties segregated? In some cases in a retail store they are not. However, if you put yes, that's great. Yes, that should be, department should be supervised by someone not authorized to pay bills. I'm going to just kind of fly through these and answer them the way that's best if I can. However, a lot of times these are going to be no if it's like a smaller operation. Okay, that last one, of course, should always be yes. Okay. All right. Again, this is not, I was in an office for a long time where this didn't occur until we put a lock on the door. So again, it just depends. Okay. Here is where you're going to just kind of list out the description of property. Now, you've filled this out for a while. You're in pain, it's just painful filling out this stuff, but here is you gotta spend some time on this section. Okay, you gotta paint a picture, just like the Accord 125 where we described the business. You've gotta paint a picture on this property section, make them feel super comfortable. Okay, so we're gonna say like jewelry on average of $5,000 per item, in locked safe, blah blah blah, or we could put something like 50% of jewelry on average. The key here is describe what it looks like, describe what sort of property they have, describe where the money is. the maximum value, just really going through here and giving them a picture, because it makes a big difference. If you think about it, like if they have jewelry that's over $5,000 in the amount of like $100,000, and then they have jewelry that's valued at $100 or less in the amount of $400,000, you know this is like a trinket shop. This is like one of those little earring stores. But if it's one of those like you've got like all your jewelry is in excess of $5,000 per item. Now you've got like a nicer store, or $30,000 per item. You could have a really high-end store. So describing the property and listing the maximum value, describe well here. Okay. This will get you the sale with the underwriter. Okay, miscellaneous business hours. This is pretty self-explanatory. I used like a ton of employees like up above, so that's cool. All right. We stamp all of the checks for deposit only. That means that an employee can't go to the bank and cash them. Okay, that's important. Make sure your businesses are practicing that. The frequency of deposit is daily, once per day. So it's good to specify, daily, once daily, sorry. Okay. Night depository, this is whether or not they use some sort of night depository at the bank. I'm going to say no. In my example, they didn't. Annual gross sales for the last year. Okay. Let's say that was like 10 million. Huge operation. I hope with that kind of an operation that they have deadbolts. And any other information you might add, but there's a lot more down here. Congratulations, you're filling out the crime app. Hope everyone's happy with their choice in career, filling out crime apps. Manufacturer, let's just say, okay, so we're talking about the safe here. We're going to say this is a Roland safe. We're going to say most of them are all UL. And the fire class. Now the fire class, or I should say break-in class, or whatever they call it, protection class, that's it, of the safe is going to be on the inside of the door. So when you open up the door of the safe, it's going to be right there. When I'm in these places, I just take a little picture of those, because there's no way I'm going to remember them. It'll say stuff like TL30, which means that with like a super sophisticated torch, it takes like 30 minutes to break in. That's what that means. So that you're looking for stuff like this on the inside of that door. It's a square door. It's got an outside combination lock. Actually, sorry, the combination lock is inner. By the way, you can find all this information again on the door or with a Google search based on the safe. Okay, but all that's going to be important. So, oh geez, on the top of my head, I can't remember like the thickness of the walls and stuff. So I'm apologizing for this, but we're just going to say an inch on that thickness. If you don't know this, leave it blank. This one's okay to leave blank. Okay. In fact, I'm going to leave it blank. I don't know. Always better to just leave it blank if you don't know, and that's something where I've been able to get quotes without having that information. I do need this stuff though, like not necessarily the combination locks, but this part here, especially the class. Okay, messenger, who takes things where? So if they're taking them to like the bank, for example, when they say messenger, they mean person walking around with money or goods. Okay, so messenger number 1, and then of course there's messenger number 2. We're just going to say messenger number 1 has 0 guards, has 0 armored vehicles. He takes his own car. That's considered a private conveyance. If he took like an Uber or taxi, that'd be public. Okay, so he takes his own car. He has a safety satchel. A lot of times is a red bag with a lock on it. So that's a safety satchel. That's how that's answered. Easy enough. If there was more messengers or people walking around with goods, you'd pop the second one in there. Premises information. In jewelry stores, there's a lot of times a hold-up alarm, a premises alarm. Hold-up alarm is the button you push that makes noise or signals the police. Hopefully it doesn't make noise. That's a good reason for people to get attacked. So hold-up alarms should typically only ever signal the actual central station, which is the alarm company. Okay, central station is the alarm company. Local gong is a loud dinging or sounding siren. I like to advise people not to have those because that's, again, a good way to get attacked. So the hold up alarm could be a button that's silent, signals the alarm company. In some cases, it might signal the police department. Okay, just depends on the alarm. And then in the event that we have a safe, there should be a safe alarm. Okay, so again, the grade of the alarm, this is all going to be answered by the alarm company. So we're just going to say it's serviced by like ADT, and there's going to be address information here, contact info here. There are 0 guards, 0 watch persons. Okay. If there was any information, you just fill that out there. And we've just got 1 premises. And the safe and the vault are complete protected. That means that they have like a contact. They've got a contact alarm and like a motion sensor alarm on them as well. Okay, that's the complete. Partial might just be one or the other. Okie doke. Certificate number, again, that is going to be on the safe or on the alarm. Okay, and whenever that certificate expires. All right. Accessible openings. All right. All right. See where I'm going with this stuff? The more of a beautiful picture I can paint, the better. And now, we don't have to complete this if we blanketed the coverage, if we scheduled the coverage, which can save a little bit of premium, but it also means that this can get outdated, so you're going to need to review it every year with the owner. So I usually like to blanket stuff, but if you do schedule it, this is where you'd fill all that out by employee, by title, in terms of coverage. If there are additional locations, you list them here. And by the way, if you love to complete the Accord 141, you just get ready because you can complete it for each location. Okay? And then if there are any additional remarks like, man, this is a long form, save that for Accord, but this is where you could also put other things that can help sell the policy. Again, we're always trying to sell the company first, then the customer. So that is the Accord 141, and I'm going to come out with more of these videos. So subscribe to my channel. Leave me comments if you'd like a copy of the filled out version of this. Or any highlighted templates that I can send over to you. I'll do that as well. And feel free to drop me a comment if there's any other videos you'd like to see. I'm also going to be using some agency best practice videos here in the future, but hopefully this helped you understand crime coverage as well as how to complete the forms. Have a great week.